The first thing you need to understand about the CIA in the 1960s is that they were afraid. And not afraid of bombs, and not afraid of Russians. But they were afraid of the mind. Afraid of the idea that somewhere out there, in a drab Moscow building, some bastard in a cheap suit had figured out how to reach inside a man's head and twist the knobs. So they started looking for it themselves. They hired the best chemists and bought the world's supply of LSD. Every drop. Imagine that. The entire planet's production of the most powerful mind-altering substance known to man. $240,000 in the 1960s. American taxpayer money spent so they could figure out how to turn a human being into a puppet. The man they put in charge was a chemist named Sidney Gottlieb. He was a Jew whose parents had emigrated from Central Europe. If they hadn't, he might have ended up in a camp. Instead, he ended up in a lab, hiring the doctors who ran those camps to teach him what they'd learned. Nazi doctors, the ones who'd cut into children at Dachau, the ones who measured how long it took for sarin gas to kill. They flew them to America, set them up in nice hotels, gave them lecture halls. They wanted to know the numbers. How long did it take a small child to die? An old woman? A healthy man? The Nazis had the data. The CIA paid for access. This fact seems not to have troubled him. The irony is grotesque, but it is also instructive. It suggests that the capacity for cruelty is not limited to any particular ideology, and that the machinery of torture can be operated by anyone who believes sufficiently in the righteousness of their cause. Gottlieb was a strange bird. The chemist who brought LSD to America lived in a cabin in the woods with no running water. He grew vegetables and studied Buddhism. He meditated. He wrote poetry and worked in a leprosarium in India after leaving the CIA. Then he drove into the office and decided which prisoners would get which drugs. He ran the safehouses where unwitting subjects were dosed and observed, and drove to the record center to destroy the evidence of his crimes. He also made poisons, cigars full of botulinum for Castro, a wet suit that would kill anyone who wore it, a potion full Zhou and Lai to put in his rice. He was the guy you called when you needed someone dead in a way that couldn't be traced. The experiments happened everywhere. Prisons, hospitals, brothels. The CIA set up safehouses in New York and San Francisco, hired prostitutes and told them to bring men back to the apartment. They'd feed the men LSD, watch through one-way mirrors and ask questions. The men didn't know anything was wrong. They thought they were getting laid. They were getting studied instead. A guy named George Hunter White ran the operation in San Francisco. He was a narcotics agent who'd busted Billie Holiday. He'd sit in the next room, drinking martinis, watching the whole thing from a portable toilet. That's your tax dollars at work, America. That's the war against communism. And what of the subjects? The prisoners in Atlanta, among them Whitey Bulger, got LSD every day for 15 months. He was in Atlanta doing time for hijacking a truck. They told him it was an experiment to cure schizophrenia. He didn't have schizophrenia. He was a guinea pig. They wanted to see if they could drive a man insane by feeding him acid every single day. Well, they could. Bulger said the walls bled. He saw skeletons. He felt violent. He wanted to kill the doctor who ran the program. The doctor died a natural death. Bulger died in prison, beaten to death in a federal pen. The government had the last word. What of the patients in mental hospitals, the addicts in treatment centers, the men who were lured to safe houses by prostitutes and dosed without their knowledge? The agents suspected of disloyalty, the foreign nationals deemed expendable, the people who disappeared in the secret detention centers in Germany and Japan and the Philippines. Frank Olson was a scientist working on biological weapons. He got dosed with LSD at a company retreat. Didn't know he'd taken anything. A week later, he fell out of a 13th-story window in New York. The CIA said it was suicide. The autopsy later said homicide. Someone hit him in the head before he went through the glass. The family got a settlement and the government apologized. Nobody went to jail. Nobody even got fired. Olson was just a guy who knew too much and couldn't be trusted to keep his mouth shut. That's the American way. They wanted a truth serum. They wanted an amnesiac and a way to make a man forget his own mother and follow orders. What they got was nothing. After years of torture, countless destroyed minds, after deaths that will never be counted, Gottlieb finally admitted it. Mind control doesn't work. You can destroy a mind, sure, anyone can do that, that's easy. Give a man enough acid, enough electroshock or isolation and his mind will crack like an egg. But you can't put it back together. You can't insert a new mind into the void. You can't make a puppet. You can just make a mess. So they burned the files. In 1973, when the heat was on, Helms ordered everything destroyed. Gottlieb drove to the record center himself. He watched them shred 7 boxes of progress reports. The archivists protested. The archivists didn't matter. Some files survived, accidentally, or possibly by objection of consciousness, misfiled in a financial records building. That's how we know anything at all. That's how we know about the 149 sub-projects, 86 universities and research centers, the 185 researchers. That's how we know about the 44 universities and the 3 prisons and the 12 hospitals that were involved in this. A vast network of ostensibly legitimate scientific inquiry that was, in reality, a front for the CIA's darkest ambitions. That's also how we know that the CIA paid a private medical institution $375,000, funneled through a fake foundation so the government could match the donation with federal money. Princeton, where Alan Dulles had been a student, was among the institutions named, but the connections ran deeper than mere institutional affiliation. Dulles had been the director of the CIA when MKUltra was approved, had signed off on the program that would administer LSD to unwitting subjects and subject prisoners to electroshock and create a system of secret detention centers in Europe and Asia where expendable persons could be experimented upon without oversight. The irony is almost too perfect. The same man who had condemned Soviet brain warfare as antithetical to American values had approved a program that replicated the worst excesses of the Nazi doctors he claimed to despise. The same institution that had prosecuted the Nuremberg doctors for crimes against humanity had hired Nazi scientists to advise on its own experiments. The same country that had formulated the Nuremberg Code, requiring informed consent for human experimentation, had systematically violated its own principles in the name of national security. The Church Committee questioned Gottlieb in the mid-1970s, a period of institutional self-examination that seemed to promise a reckoning with the abuses of the past. Named after its chairman, Frank Church, the committee was charged with investigating the CIA's illegal domestic activities. Sidney Gottlieb was called to testify, first under a pseudonym, then under his own name. He had immunity. He couldn't remember anything. He forgot his boss's name, he forgot his deputy's name, he forgot what department he'd worked for. His memory, once so precise, had become a void. Strategic forgetting, the willed amnesia. The committee didn't push hard enough. Of course, they didn't know what to ask. They had the files, but they didn't have the imagination. They couldn't picture the brothels and the martinis and the one-way mirrors. They couldn't hear the screams from the detention centers in Japan, Germany, and the Philippines. They couldn't smell the fear in the cells. They were senators. They got briefings. Then they went to lunch. The program also normalized a certain kind of thinking about interrogation and torture. The techniques that Gottlieb and his colleagues developed, sensory deprivation, isolation, extremes of temperature, electroshock, the administration of drugs, these became the basis for the CIA's enhanced interrogation techniques of the post-9/11 era. The program officially ended in the early 1960s. Gottlieb retired to his cabin, he grew vegetables and meditated and wrote poetry. Here's the beautiful part, the part that keeps me sane. The drug they thought would control the masses became the drug that set them free. LSD was supposed to be the key to the American mind. Instead, it unlocked something else. Kesey got his acid from a CIA experiment and wrote One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Robert Hunter got his acid the same way and wrote lyrics for the Grateful Dead. Ginsberg got dosed in a Stanford lab and became the poet of the counterculture. Timothy Leary read about a CIA-funded expedition to Mexico and found his life's work. The poisoners gave the children the poison, and the children used it to build a new world. Yes, an imperfect world, a messy world, but a world the CIA couldn't control.